I used the most popular vagus nerve stimulation device every day for 1 year because I wanted to see if Pulsetto could actually live up to the tremendous claims they make in their social media ads. In fact, if paid influencers are to be believed, this little shock collar should supposedly reduce stress, anxiety, and chronic pain while improving sleep, digestion, and heart rate variability. But I'm a natural skeptic who doesn't fall for hype or placebo effects, so I'm gonna let you know exactly which benefits I actually noticed from my year using Pulsetto, as well as where it fell short for me, and how to avoid one huge mistake I made that could waste months of your time without results if you don't get it right. Now, the tech behind this vagus nerve stimulation device is actually pretty simple, which makes me happy because it makes my job of explaining it to you a lot easier. Basically, you apply some electrogel to your neck, place Pulsetto around your neck with the 4 metal prongs pressing against the gel, and then you just turn Pulsetto on, connect it to the free app, and start one of the stimulation programs like stress, anxiety, sleep, burnout, pain, etc. That's it. From there, it'll deliver small electrical impulses to your vagus nerve for like 10 minutes or so. But what are these electrical impulses actually doing for us? What is vagus nerve stimulation, or VNS for short? Well, here's where you're about to benefit from the 40 hours of research I did into the subject, because I can condense everything I learned into like 60 seconds. Basically, the vagus nerve is the largest parasympathetic nerve in our body, and the parasympathetic nervous system is what controls our rest and digest functions. So you've probably heard of fight or flight mode, when we're anxious, alert, and panicky. Well, it's the vagus nerve that's responsible for pulling us out of that and getting us to chill.
Daddy, chill.
And by stimulating the vagus nerve regularly, we can improve vagal tone, sort of like how a muscle becomes stronger the more we use it at the gym. And with consistent training, this will make the vagus nerve better at its job. This means better at switching your brain and body out of high stress mode and into the calm, relaxed state that we want to be in. Which happens to be where a lot of those big claims come from about Pulsetto helping with stress, anxiety, sleep, pain, digestion, etc. Because if you search for VNS, or vagus nerve stimulation, along with any of those terms, you will get back a definitive, scientifically backed answer telling you that it can in fact help with all those things. Now, I still think Pulsetto takes some liberties with their marketing claims, but we'll circle back to that later. For now, it's important to understand that VNS itself is very much legit, proven, and used in the medical field. And I want to keep things moving right now, but I go way deeper into the science behind this stuff in another video, so feel free to check that out or drop a comment if you need help finding it. But there are a handful of different vagus nerve stimulators out there, so why did I choose to spend a year doing a Pulsetto review specifically? Well, as a general rule of thumb, I like to do a bit of research before I shoot electricity through any part of my body, so I pored over research papers and lurked on every forum I could find to make sure that Pulsetto was actually safe and at least halfway legit. The product definitely isn't perfect, which you'll see later in the video, but I did find 3 green flags that made me feel comfortable moving forward. First was Pulsetto's fantastic Trustpilot score. When a brand has a score of like 1, I do not put that on my neck. Second were some Facebook groups I found dedicated to vagus nerve stimulation, and these were just full of people swearing that vagus nerve stimulation was able to completely change their lives and end years of anxiety, chronic pain, and so on. And I did notice that Pulsetto was the most popular recommendation in those groups. And the third green flag I saw was that it was actually being used by pretty much the most famous biohacker I follow, Bryan Johnson. This is the crazy rich genius who is literally trying to reverse aging by adhering to an extremely strict health regimen and being the most tested human in history. And not only is he doing vagus nerve stimulation, but he has specifically shown himself using Pulsetto for this. And listen, I know I'm a little bit more handsome than Bryan, but he is definitely smarter than me, so I decided to go forward with the Pulsetto review. Now, something I really do like about Pulsetto is that I only ever set up the Bluetooth connection one time and it's connected automatically ever since then. That might not sound like a big deal to everyone, but I've got a lot of gadgets and sometimes getting them to connect each time can be a headache. This isn't one of those. Compared to other vagus nerve stimulators, I also really like that Pulsetto is completely wireless and hands-free. I usually use mine before bed, so I like that I can multitask and brush my teeth or read a book at the same time, because for me, it just makes it a lot easier to get the habit to stick and to use it consistently. It's also worth mentioning that while there is technically an optional subscription, it's mostly just for adding like unnecessary features like meditations, breathing exercises, and AI features that you definitely don't need, so I wouldn't worry about it. There are also two different models, the Pulsetto Lite versus the Pulsetto Fit, and honestly, they do the exact same thing. The only difference is that the Fit has this adjustable magnetic cushion on the back, so go with that one if you have a thinner neck. Otherwise, don't overthink it. But also, don't buy anything yet, because I've still got to show you my results after using them for a year. But if later you do decide to get either version of Pulsetto, I'll drop some discount links down in the description, and using them may help support the channel at no extra cost to you, which I always appreciate. So, 1 year later, after using Pulsetto 5 days a week for 1 or 2 10-minute sessions per day, what actually happened? Well, for the first week or so, nothing happened, because I was actually using the device wrong. Not a big fan of instruction manuals. Later, I found out that I actually wasn't applying enough of the electrogel to my neck, and you'll know this is the case for you too if you feel either nothing at all or what feels like little slightly uncomfortable rubber band snaps. And the best solution to this is to apply more electrogel to your neck, or what I prefer to do, just apply the electrogel directly to the contact points of the device. I also highly recommend starting at a lower intensity setting, but then gradually working your way up as you feel more comfortable with the sensation. It should never hurt, but it should be set high enough that you feel some slight muscle spasms in the area, like the iconic lip pull that tends to happen to many users. These are good signs that you're using the device correctly. For me personally, an intensity of 7 or 8 works perfectly. It might be different for you, but if you go too low, you might not see the results you want. Once I got those details figured out, I started noticing some changes. The first thing I noticed was how Pulsetto affected my sleep. Now, a lot of people use Pulsetto to help them fall asleep and stay asleep, but I don't actually have any issue sleeping through the night. So for me, the biggest sleep-related change was kind of a weird one. Whenever I use Pulsetto, for some reason, I almost always wake up a few minutes before my alarm clock goes off, and I'm just not tired. Now, normally I have a big problem doing this, and I hit snooze multiple times before I'm ready to get out of bed, but somehow Pulsetto does completely fix this for me. And as soon as I stop using Pulsetto, I'm back to hitting snooze again. So I do love it for that. Another big change I noticed was to my heart rate variability, or HRV for short. Now, if you don't know what HRV is, it's basically the best indicator of nervous system balance and cardiovascular fitness. The higher the number, the better. Now, my HRV is always pretty high, usually around 100 or so. So for my whole first month using Pulsetto, I didn't really notice much of a day-to-day difference. But after a few months of use, I did notice that my overall average monthly HRV had increased by about 10 to 15 points while I was using it, along with, I would say, maybe a mild boost to mood and overall productivity, but nothing too crazy there. And while most people who buy Pulsetto do it to help with either chronic pain or to decrease stress and anxiety levels, I can't speak too much to those use cases because honestly, I've never had any chronic pain worth mentioning, and I've got other coping mechanisms for keeping my general anxiety levels low. But I will say, I do think it helps me a bit to calm my nerves before specific situations that would normally make me feel anxious. Granted, not as much as 6 pints of beer would, but this is probably the smarter option for taking the edge off before a job interview or first date. But it's not all perfect. While I actually do think Pulsetto is a fantastic product, I definitely don't think it's for everyone for a few big reasons. The first one is pretty simple. If you're pregnant or have heart problems, electricity is not for you. Pass on Pulsetto, and I'll give you some other options later. The second kind of person who shouldn't buy Pulsetto is anyone expecting a sort of miracle cure here. Vagus nerve stimulation is legit, and it's becoming more and more popular for good reason, but I think it's also important to set reasonable expectations. And sometimes I find that Pulsetto's marketing can be just a little bit dramatic. For example, I've seen ads comparing it to Ozempic for weight loss, which it's just not even close to that. Sure, less stress can lead to less stress eating, and VNS can help with some digestive issues, but it's definitely not gonna magically help you develop a six-pack. For those reasons, I can't recommend Pulsetto to everyone, but there are certain people who I think definitely should consider buying Pulsetto. First, if you're experiencing any of the issues VNS can genuinely help with, like stress, anxiety, fatigue, sleep issues, chronic pain, low HRV, and so on, I actually think it makes sense to give VNS a shot in some capacity before resorting to more extreme measures like a lifetime of prescription medication that comes with side effects. As long as you manage your expectations and understand that VNS is not some magic bullet replacement for major lifestyle choices like therapy, exercise, and a healthy diet. And you can use whatever vagus nerve stimulator you want for this, but I've tested every major brand, and so far I'd say that Pulsetto is the best option I've found. If that ever changes, I will definitely let you know down in the description below, so check there for updates. But for now, Pulsetto worked very well for me, and the app is smooth and easy to use. I love that it's hands-free so I can multitask, which helps the habit stick, and it's actually priced a bit lower than competitors. So in case it sounds like something you'd be interested in trying, I'll drop a link down below that I'll keep updated with the best current deal possible, and using that link will also help support the channel, which I greatly appreciate. But if for some reason you're not able to do vagus nerve stimulation with electricity, or you're just not comfortable with it, there are some other options for you. I've got another review up of a product that attempts to stimulate the vagus nerve through vibration alone. And while I personally notice better results from an electrical current, if you can't use something like Pulsetto, I highly recommend checking out that video instead. Otherwise, drop a comment down below if you've got any questions that I can help you out with.